god.
The game's already flickering
Just
because
right.
this game's built like garbage. Look, it's already falling
Yeah,
apart.
here's the thing: the PC port isn't like super incredible, and also I'm streaming to you and to the internet and doing other things at the same time. So I'm normally not doing that. That's pretty funny. I've never seen that. This is literally the only time I ever saw that happen. Oh, it's gone. Hello,
Oh,
we're
oh,
here,
hi everybody, welcome. It's Cryptic Puzzle. My name's Andy.
and I'm Tommy, and this is Elden Ring. Look at
Do
it
you
looks terrible.
do you? Oh, well, it doesn't look terrible except for just that one spot.
Yeah, well, things are getting stuttery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
you're
know.
enjoying the visual part of the podcast on YouTube, you can see all of the stuttery goodness,
Yeah.
which is probably a treat because I've never seen this game look anything but beautiful and amazing, to be
Yeah,
honest
here's the
with you.
thing. It looks good on my screen, and the stream is just really not having it. So,
That's okay because we're really just here to chill out and have some visual of it anyway. It
yeah.
doesn't
Oh
need
my
to look
gosh, I didn't even
immaculate.
know Raya was here.
Yeah, that's not normally where I see her on Altus Plateau. I see her. Look to your left a little bit. Over, you know how there's like a ruin down there?
Mm-hmm.
Normally she's hanging out over there, or that's
Ah,
where that's where I've met her to go to Volcano Manor both times.
gotcha. Huh. Yeah, I normally find other teleports there, but anyway. So
Hmm.
yeah. Hi everyone. This is Elden Ring. My game is still twitchy and glitching a little bit, but this is my Journey 4 playthrough. I am at the Altus Plateau.
Jesus.
For those of you who know where that is, we're like I don't know, close to the halfway point in the game. I think, something like that. However it is you
I
do that. Oh, I gotta go grab that Grace.
I still
And
definitely want to say to you, by the way, that I have not forgiven you for the fact that I was like, I'm gonna play Dragon Quest 11 again, and you were like, "Oh my God, how many times are you gonna play that game?" And I was like, "It's my second time, Mister. I've played Elden Ring. This is my fourth run. Like, what are you crazy?" Like, I was like, "What is this man saying to me right
yeah,
now?" I was
well,
mad.
all right. And here's my rationale, which I've said to you twice now. But the internet has to hear it. Is that Elden Ring? For me to fight, I have to do this. You know, I gotta hit buttons and dodge stuff and blah 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 and react. And there's an execution aspect to it. Not to say that there's like nothing to combat in RPGs, but like I can literally put the controller down and walk away and come back and then choose my action in most of them. So like the mental load to me is very different. So I just like
But,
I
but
wouldn't
it
return to that type of game as readily as something where I'm active in the combat. You know, that's all.
you
It's not
you
that there's
would
no
if you
merit
played
in
it.
it.
You would if you've played it, but also
That might be
that's
true.
it's not like, oh, you're gonna play it for a second time, as you were like, oh my God, how many times are you gonna play that game?
Yeah.
As you've played this game 4 times.
Well,
I was
mostly
like, bruh.
you're normally on the Dragon Quest kick like all the time. You know, it seems like you're
I-
always playing and replaying a Dragon Quest game. So that was most of my
Um,
reaction.
yeah, believe it or not, I'm good for like one a year. I'm not like always playing Dragon Quest, but when the mood hits me, it's like, oh, it's happening. You know?
Well, I have a question. How close is Dragon Quest 12, or should I simply play Dragon Quest 11? By the way, everyone, I haven't played Dragon Quest 11. I have always heard that you should play Dragon Quest 11. So do that. Big recommend
Dragon.
from Andy, I'm sure.
You really should play Dragon Quest 11. And if anyone listening is thinking about, oh, he got you, buddy.
He sure did. I gotta heal my
Um,
horse.
if anyone else is listening and they're interested in Dragon Quest 11, I'll give everyone the same recommendation that I'll give to you, which is that they do the Square Enix demo thing where they're like, "Hey, here's a free demo. If you like it and you buy the game, it's really just the beginning of the game, and your demo progress rolls right over into the game if you buy it.
Ah, yeah,
But the
I
demo
really like
is
that.
literally like 8 hours. It's like a full game. So
Oh. Elden
there's really
Jank.
there's really like there's really nothing to lose from trying the demo, but
I didn't realize
because
it was that substantial a portion of the game, actually, so...
yeah, it's like legit. I legit put like 8.5 hours into it when I bought the game. But it's I think you should play it. I think anyone who even has a little bit of an interest in turn-based RPGs should play it, because it's like very arguably, like, probably the best one ever made. Arguably, I don't know if it's my favorite, but like, there's a good argument to be like, yeah, it's certainly one of the best, if not the best. So You're gonna love it someday.
Yeah, someday. Which way should I go? Anyway, this is the map of Elden Ring, everyone. If you are somehow watching the second episode of an internet show about a video game and you're worried about spoilers, I'm sorry to say you kind of lost that right a while ago.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna show you the whole map because there's a lot of stuff. You start over here. It's great. It's this one, the first step.
Go to that one. Actually, no, don't. I like Altus Plateau.
Yeah, here's the thing. I figured I was going to ask you if I should be going north or if I should actually head to inside the wall.
Don't matter. Just run around on your little horsey man. Call of Duty Horsey Man.
This is very not Call of Duty. Oh, it's nighttime. Here we go.
Does this guy only appear at nighttime?
Yes.
Nice. I didn't know when. I know sometimes.
Dude, his
they
name
appear.
is the Knights Cavalry. It's on the
What?
screen right now.
Oh my God! Relax. There's like 10 of him. Chill.
There's like 6.
Yeah. Almost 10. Also, in one area I can think of, isn't he just always there?
No.
Oh, really?
That means you just never beat him.
No, I beat him. I beat him in both playthroughs in the same location,
Oh,
and he
interesting.
just was there. I didn't know it was only at night. I thought he just existed there.
Oh yeah, speaking of both playthroughs, you have actually completed your second one. You rolled credits, right?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, he did it. See, I told you you could do it.
I didn't want to.
He goes, the
Let me
game's
tell-
too hard, I can't beat it, and then he beats it.
Well, okay. So if we can, we'll pick up from kind of where we left off, at least in terms of my file. So last we had talked, I was. God, where was I? I think I was like here last time we talked. I like maybe a little further into Lindell, but
Yeah,
I was
think
about
you were
here.
actually in the city.
Yeah,
so
I was
yeah.
kind of just starting, I think. So, but I have since beaten the rest of the game. I will say, last time we talked a lot about how I was running the Great Scythe, or I guess it's not the Great Scythe, it's the Grave Scythe.
Grave Scythe, yes.
Grave Scythe, and I since switched to some better great swords with better blood loss, which was awesome. And once I did that, literally I like shredded the entire rest of this game, and I continued to text you about how shocked I was. But once I got like a nice great sword with blood loss, I just like ripped everything to shreds, like all the way up until the end game.
My favorite part about you going for, like, continuing to use bleed, which was fine, because we had talked about how strong bleed was and
Bleed
still
rules.
is, despite the fact so much of bleed has been, not bleed as a status, but many weapons that utilize bleed have been, like, super nerfed because of how busted they were for a while. But yeah, you were like, I'm gonna put bleed on my Knight's Greatsword, but I'm not gonna put any levels into Arcane. And you were like, yeah, dude, this is so easy. I'm like, you're literally running a suboptimal version of your build that you insist on sticking to, and it's still like, yeah.
You told me that after I had beaten the final boss. So
Yes, correct. That's
there
what
was
I mean.
no like, right? So, well, I don't know. See, this is the thing: is like, when does the game tell you that bleed is dependent on Arcane? Like, I didn't know that. How was I to know that unless I was to use Waikai Pidaya?
Well, Andy, I think there's actually a lot that the game does tell you if you look. Because as it turns out, if you hit the select button, or I guess whatever, I don't know what the select button is on PlayStation controllers anymore, but the select button basically, and you go to this word called explanation.
Tell me where it says that bleed does better with Arcane.
If I go down to
Find it.
Arcane, attribute governing discovery, also like holy defense, vitality, and certain sorceries and incantations. It doesn't here.
Oh.
But here's the thing, right?
Oh.
Here's the thing, right, Andy? We're gonna go back to.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm sitting at a grace right now. So here's another thing. So I got a bunch of weapons I can change my Ashes of War on.
Yep.
So let me look at this, right? So I'm just gonna go standard, no enhancement on it right now. It's just got the standard everything for Dane's footwork, which is the thing I'm using to kick stuff. So you
Sure.
can see the physical damage that it has and its base attribute scaling. So does my mouse? Oh, my mouse does show up. Okay, physical, right here. So those two numbers together, this is just the base of the weapon itself at what level it's at. And then this is all the damage you get from attribute scaling. That's how that works.
That's I see. I never knew what that second little plus was.
See that? But that's what I mean. You beat the game twice and you didn't know how the stats worked at all, which is very funny to me.
I don't think they're. Well, first of all, I don't think they that readily tell you what that is. But also, like, I mean, obviously, the attribute scaling is like obviously if you have a strength dex build or whatever, you want to use a weapon with that. But I just looked at what the attack power was. Like, I would just go through the weapons and be like, what's my attack power if I equip it, don't equip it, all that stuff.
Yeah, so this is my right armament 3 in the top right corner here. So you can see that my base AR at my level with my stats and this plus 25 Dane's footwork gives me 415 AR. That is what the sum of those two numbers is. That's basically, it will total up all the numbers that are here, and it'll put that over on the right-hand side. So that's before any other additional buffs and stuff that you'll get with talismans and yada, 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 that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I'm going to go back down. I'm not actually going to use a different thing, because if I use a standard, I guess, non-elemental based thing, here are all of the individual elements that, and for anyone who's just purely audio listening, there's standard things. There is a heavy infusion, basically, that leans towards strength, a keen infusion that leans towards dex, and a quality infusion that leans it's split between strength and dex, focuses on both of those. Then there's different elements. I don't truly know what the difference besides the scaling between fire and flame art is, but if you want fire on your weapon, you can get that base. You can get magic, lightning, sacred is holy, poison, blood, which is what Andy did for bleed, cold, which is magic based, and then occult, which is purely arcane based. So the reason you're supposed to figure all this out, Andy, is you're supposed to intuit that from my normal weapon at standard, I have strength and dex scaling at C and then nothing on any of the other stats. And then if I go down to bleed, suddenly it adds arcane. If it's adding one of those things, it's because it scales off of that. Like, with the thing that it's adding is innately tied to that.
Sure.
So like for cold, I would get more frost buildup as I pumped my intelligence, actually, I think, here. Which is kind of weird, but it is. So
let me ask you this then. So, like, does arcane, like, sure, now it turns your weapon into an arcane scaling weapon now, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Does that increase the amount of, like, if you have higher arcane, is it going to raise the blood loss buildup?
Yes.
Stat itself?
Yes.
It is. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and the reason why mine's at 110, even though I'm not like an arcane build, is if we look at my at my level, I'm level 404. I don't have enough runes to level up one more time.
I don't even know.
Yeah,
dude, I got news for you. If my arcane stat was like higher, I think everything would die in like two hits, because my blood loss buildup was like 110 already. Like. Yeah. I bled everything to death. Like, I don't even imagine how this game would be. You destroy everything with the weapon I had.
Well, the other part of it that I thought is interesting is because, so the way that status effects in general work, so there's poison here, there's blood loss, there's any status effect in this game, frost as well. It's based on the number of times you make contact. It is not how strong a weapon is at all. You will see that they did try and skew it so that if I tried to put bleed on a big old hammer, it is going to give me more blood loss buildup per swing than a small dagger. But I can swing a dagger like 4 or 5 times in the time it takes me to swing and recover from one big colossal swing. So, you know, it swings the other way. So you pick something that is not actually a super high hit per second type of thing. So you also didn't even have like the weapon type that would have been optimal for bleed, you know? And that's what I mean is like, that's, if you kind of know what you're doing and you have something that is strong, you will succeed in these games, you know? Like, you clearly did, you know?
Yeah, well, I disagree. Like, the thing that was cool about the great sword with the bleed was like, for most like big enemies and even bosses, it would be like, I would hit them like 3 or 4 times and it would spec a bleed, and then I would hit one more time and I would spec a stagger. So like really, like if you were pretty good at it or pretty good at dodging, like it only took 4 to 5 hits to get like a bleed and a stagger off, which just felt like ridiculous. Like when I like even those late game bosses, like that's how I just ripped through them, because you'd get bleed, then a stagger, then a riposte or whatever, and it was just like, so it kind of had the added benefit of the heavy great sword, that you're gonna really stagger enemies a ton while getting that cool bleed damage off.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's clearly working, and the thing is, great swords are also categorically like very good in general. So the fact that it's not the most optimal thing for bleed is also counterbalanced by the fact that great swords just have good movesets and generally have a good, they're not super heavy, so they're not that hard to actually equip most of the time.
Yeah,
they do good damage.
It was just
so
it kind of was like a good balance, because really like a bleed is like a stagger plus a ton of damage, plus I was staggering the boss with just the regular stagger. So really, I was staggering the bosses a ton once I was able to get a few hits out. This is actually the Knight's Greatsword is the one I used for a while, and then I got a special Knight's Greatsword, which was even more powerful. So once I fully upgraded that, it was like ridiculous.
Well, so what were you... Because I know you finished with the Knight's Greatsword, and the reason why the Knight's Greatsword is... I'll actually pick a different one first.
No, I picked... It was the other Knight's Greatsword, that one. It
No,
was
the Banished Knight. Yes,
Greatsword.
yeah, so you were using this one for a while, so the Knights and the Banished Knight's Greatsword actually has a different two-handed moveset from the other Greatswords. So if I swing around my Claymore, two-handed. So this is just regular swings, one-handed.
Yeah, that looks like mine.
But
that
two-handed.
Looks like what the
Ooh, hello.
does, doesn't it?
No, this is the Claymore. And then this is the regular two-handed greatsword moveset. Overhead chops and swings up.
Isn't that the moveset of the other ones? No?
Nope. No, what you were using was this guy.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a little different. Is it that different?
Oh yes, much different. So
it starts with an overhead, but
it starts with an overhead, but all the other swings are different, and also the range on it swings behind you. You get some horizontals and diagonals that you don't otherwise get. The overhead, it's pretty much almost a straight overhead and a straight back up with the regular greatsword. You get a lot more diversity in the moveset with the Knights and the Banished Knights. So good choice, genuinely.
Yeah, those weapons rule. See, and here's the other thing too is like, so in terms of like knowing stuff and not knowing stuff, and like I think it's I don't know if it's like a fair criticism against this game to say like it's too complicated and you have to like read a Bible to understand it. Like I think that's more of a me thing. Like I don't know. I very specifically play video games like it's 1994, and I like to go like, what if I wasn't talking to anybody about it and didn't use the internet at all and was just playing the game like just playing the game. That's how I like to play games. I don't like to look anything up or do deep dives or whatever. So that's more a me thing, but I do think like, I don't know. I think it's a little complicated, and I think it would be very fair for a lot of people. I'm sure lots of people have understood less than me and finished this game probably, right?
Almost certainly, but I think the thing is there's no point where like I think saying that the point of this game is to understand it is wrong.
I agree. Yeah,
I
agree.
It's just not what it's not what it's asking you to do beyond understanding how its systems generally kind of work in a way that works for you. That's really all it's asking you to do. It does not expect you to know everything or how all of the mechanics work. You just need to know exactly what you did, which was enough to get you to the credits. And that's what I think is cool about these games, is because it is about it's about the struggle. And I think the while I get the somewhat frustration with the presentation, it is also like the entire point is that's how it's going to present it to you. So you really had the intended experience, whether or not like you realize that. And that's where I think overall discourse of this game is just kind of like super poisoned. People just, they have a weird idea of what FromSoft games should be in their head, and they talk about it like it is whatever that idea is, And a lot of those people haven't played the games either because it's all just
Yeah.
from cultural osmosis. So it's weird. And then when that person does eventually go to play it, they mash their face against it with this preconceived idea of how it works. And that just doesn't work in these games at all.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
I guess my follow up to that is like, so going like the high poise great sword build, like I don't know if you would agree with this, but like I feel like me just being like, hey, I'm gonna go into this game blind and just play it how I feel like the game is asking me to play it. I feel like going like a high poise, you called it a bully build. You were like, oh, it's a bully build. I was like, I don't know. I was just playing the game how I felt like it was asking me to play, because lots of any enemies bully you the exact way that you can with a great sword, and it feels to me like my inherent read of just playing the game was like, if I have a lower poise, I'm gonna be at a disadvantage, and that's sort of, and same with the bleed. Like, I don't know, I kind of was just going where I feel like the game was trying to lead me, especially with the poise and the bullying stuff. I feel like that's the most natural take on how to beat stuff. Yes or no? Y/N.
I don't agree with that. I think it's you found the thing that worked for you because everybody gels with a completely different thing in these games. Like, I will talk to my friends and not have a problem with bosses that they struggled with for hours, and then they'll have that version of a boss for me. And that's not necessarily because of our build specifically, because sometimes I'll swap up my entire build and what I'm using against a boss if I think I'm using something that's causing me to probably lose, you know?
Yeah.
It's less that and more of it's about your specific relationship with the way that the enemies interact in this game. So I don't know. I'm literally just going to run in this crowd of guys and we're going to see how it goes.
Yeah, just go beat them up. Yeah, that's
Mostly
I
because
mean,
I just wanted, like, for you to understand the way that I tend to go and play these games. Oh, I didn't put my cold back on that guy. All right, we're going to use the secret DLC weapons. Big spoilers for anyone. No one knows what this is. It doesn't
well,
really
yeah,
matter.
I mean, they didn't know if you didn't say anything. Now they all know.
It's not even a spoiler. It's just a secret
Oh.
weapon.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess that's probably fair to say that like lots of people just have different reactions in general, and like, I don't know. I guess my thing is like, all of my gripes with this game that we'll probably get into, or maybe not. I feel like all of my gripes, I'm like perfectly comfortable being like, yeah, they're my gripes, and they are just like specific to what I like and don't like about playing games in general. Things being like too complicated or cryptic in general is just like something I don't have a great taste for. Like, I can certainly appreciate the approach of this game being like, hey, we've talked about this. Like, hey, when you were a kid, we all played some Zelda game, and we would all gather on the playground. And we would like share, like, oh, cool, I found this way to get into this temple and stuff. And you would sort of collectively with your buddies figure out like a mysterious and complicated world. And I feel like this game is doing a version of that, especially considering there's like a built-in message system so that you can like leave breadcrumbs for other players. And like, I feel like that is such a cool like approach and such a cool philosophy and idea that is pulled off really well. It's just not like my thing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I was gonna ask him, like, I don't know if you had noticed anything different, but yeah, if I just walk over and you see here, it's just touch bloodstain, so that means somebody died here, and if I hit touch bloodstain, it'll show me their ghost of the last few seconds of what happened before they died. So
Yeah.
sometimes when you walk in, you see a whole bunch of bloodstains, and you don't see any enemies, you go, oh,
Right.
I should
yeah.
probably, I should probably chill.
Yeah.
Be careful for a second here.
Or even just like there are moments that I've like seen like Vati videos or like videos online of like some crazy cryptic secret illusory wall that I'm like, how on earth would I ever have found that? But it's like, oh, if you're playing with the message system, you have a pretty good chance that you will find some of those things, because people who do stumble upon them will share them with you, like by dropping a little message. So like in that sense, I feel like it's a pretty interesting like modern take on how to create that communal experience with like other people. You know what I mean?
Still no head, he says. I don't even know what that's supposed to refer to. Is that supposed to be a joke? It's not funny. Poor.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Bad.
Ooh,
Doesn't matter. He gets a heal anyway. That's
Oh,
how,
he gets a heal even if you disparage
that's
the
how
message?
it works.
Oh.
Well, otherwise
Well,
people would just always disparage to troll, you know?
Yeah, true. Yeah, so I think the complexity of the systems and the complexity of the game and stuff is like, I think it's cool and I can appreciate it. But it's like it's not the main draw for me, and like in moments it can certainly irk me, you know. But that's just me because I play with the internet off like it's the 50s.
Yeah, but I mean, so along those lines, not to say that I did it like completely super 100% blind, but like I didn't look up things while I was playing the DLC. Like there was a couple things where I was just like, okay, when I really don't want this NPC to just like randomly die in the middle of whatever it is. I'd like to get at least some stuff where I would ask somebody I knew who played ahead, just like, oh yeah, no, just do this and you'll be fine.
Sure.
But other than that, it wasn't like I must look up the step-by-step guide from the people who got the game early, who figured out how to do this. I completely botched an entire NPC side quest in the DLC. I never even met the character. I went to where they were supposed to be, and the items at the end of one of the possible things of their side quests, they were just sitting there. They were never there in my game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think my issue, that's fine. Like, you're right that you can complete the games. You can complete this game without looking anything up. Like, so in that sense, it's like not really a gripe because you'll be able to finish the games fine. But like for me, it like if I have to look something up or else I wasn't gonna find like the secret cave that let me progress the quest, like that is fine because it is optional. But it means that for me personally, that quest is automatically never going to be fun because once I've looked it up, it kind of takes the fun out of it for me. You know, like...
Oh, yeah. And I guess the thing is, like, those quests aren't there for you. There's also, like, spoiler alert, almost all, and I don't mean just most, I mean almost all of the content in this game is completely optional. You have to do very little to actually get the credits to roll, and they do tell you right where to go. And once I kill these guys, I'm going to point out, I did talk about the Sites of Grace and the fact that they point you on the map and everything, and probably saw the visual of the actual Grace I was sitting in before, but...
Sure. Well, and that's what I mean when I say, like, it's definitely my personal gripe that, like, if I had to look it up, I'm not going to have fun with it. I think for a lot of people, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I'm not averse to that at all.
Yeah.
I would rather engage with the content than not engage with the content, and if that means I had to look it up to figure it out, whatever. Like, I don't really care at all. So
see, that's really interesting to me because, like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like when I do look something up, like, I feel like I'm no longer engaging with it, at least in the way, like, at least really, like some of my favorite things in this game are like these little moments where you put together like the logic of the world and you're like, oh, like I'll give you an example. There's an area after Ronnie's quest that you get teleported to, and there's like a cool one of those little puzzle towers, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And so one of the things you have to do is you have to kill 3 turtles to open up that little tower or rise.
Yeah, they're spectral ghost turtles, by the way. Anybody, you don't just like go out and murder turtles. Like you can. There's turtles in this game, but you are not required to kill turtles to solve a puzzle. Not really.
Right, but so like my process for figuring where those turtles out, it was like, again, one of my favorite little things about the game. So there's a turtle hanging off like the edge of a cliff that's like really hard to see, but he's like giant. So you're like, okay, cool. That's a neat place to hide a turtle, but he's like really giant. And I've scoured this whole area. So like maybe he's not directly here near the rise. Maybe he's like on the entirety of this giant island. So I ran around, and you find another turtle who's like literally floating in midair, which is super cool because you're like, I didn't know. So you ride Torrent up and you knock him out. But the third turtle was my favorite because there was like a crowd of regular turtles on like the edge of this island in like this little corner, and you're like, oh, well, if there's a ton of little turtles, that's probably the game cluing me that there is one of the big turtles. And so, like, using that logic, I found, he got you, bro.
Well, it was 2 tree sentinels, and I forgot that they were there. But you know, it is what it is.
Call of Duty Horseman.
You know,
But
what's
so-
funny is I literally just did this in this playthrough yesterday.
But so like all of that logic of like seeing that there are turtles and being like, oh, that the logic of the world dictates that probably there's a turtle around for me to find. Like if I were to look it up, that I don't get to engage with the world in that way at all and try and piece things together. It's just like, oh, go to this corner and there's the turtle. So like I think that's it's my personal thing, but it makes me feel like I'm not engaging with the world anymore once I have just looked up where it's supposed to be.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
So I guess the way that I look at it, so my experience in which I look up the solution to that puzzle, which, you know, I don't think I did when I initially played the game. I'm pretty sure I did figure that one out, just as you described, basically. But the thing for me is because I don't really care as much about the looking it up, I would have explored until I was like, I'm tired of this. Like, I know that this is a secret. I'm just not understanding what last little piece of the puzzle this is. I'm just going to look that up. So I'm at least going to attempt to engage. You know, like, I'm not just going to immediately go to, I must look what this is to, quote unquote, engage with the content, because that isn't engaging with the content, you know, and that's not what I mean by it. Like, I would still rather see the thing that I'm supposed to get at the end of the little puzzle, rather than get 2/3 of the way through it and then give up and never see it, you know, like that. That I have a goblin in my brain about that. That's just how I am, you know. And I also don't mind the spoilers thing nearly as much as a lot of people do. So
yeah, and I think that's fair. I think probably most people are like you, where they hit the point where they're not having fun anymore, and they just go like, well, whatever, I'm not having fun anymore. And I think that's probably a good point to be like, it's not worth, if you're not having fun anymore, it's not worth trying to beat your head against it. So that's fair. But again, I acknowledge that it's me, and probably only me, because I don't think I know anyone else who like pretty much refuses to look up solutions to anything. Like, I don't know, everyone I know, I feel like, has looked up a walkthrough to something at some point. Well, I'm very rare for me to do.
Yeah, well, for when it comes to, like, and I think we've already kind of talked about, like, I know last time you said that you don't really think we have different opinions on this game. We might not have super different opinions. What is going on here with this AI? Oh my gosh.
Who said? Well, they got too far. I think they're turning back.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just surprised that the other health bar showed up, but they're both turned around. Oh no.
Wait, when did I say we didn't have super different? I feel like we differ. I feel like we differ in our opinions of this game.
I do dramatically, because I think fundamentally, not even just from Elden Ring, but what you value out of video games is actually in some ways rather different than mine. And I think Elden Ring is like the perfect game to highlight that, if that makes any sense. Because you very specifically love the discovery factor of any game, at least from what I glean from what you and I talk about. You are all about I'm going to figure this out, and that's super cool that I'm going to figure this out. And that's why you tried to play this game super offline, and that's cool. And you don't like the combat nearly as much as I do. I like the discovery a lot, to the point where I'm going to look it up, because I'd rather do the fight behind the secret gate that's there than not do the fight behind the secret gate, you know?
Sure.
I will hit that point where I would rather do that, because also I very much enjoy the combat in this game. And I don't think you hate the combat in this game, but I think you begrudgingly engage with the combat in this game.
No, I like the combat. I like the combat in this game a lot, and I think I like the combat in this game a lot. That's the beginning and the end of it. Like, it's definitely great combat for a lot of reasons. I just think there are points when it's too hard. Like, that's literally just it. Like, I like the combat a lot. There are points in this game where it's too hard for my personal taste and preferences.
So,
that's it.
What specifically... You said that a number of times in conversations we've had, just not on the podcast for this, right? And you said that you think that the bosses are too hard and blah, blah, blah. But, and I think it's been at least a little bit deliberate to not talk about it other than on the podcast. I don't know specifically what you find hard about the bosses in this game. I don't know that we've really talked about that much.
We have. It's too much precision and too much damage. That's it.
Here's the thing. I think the reason why you feel that way, and part of why you and I have been going like kind of in strange circles on me talking about the combat and the build and everything, is because I don't think the first part is true 98% of the time, and the damage part doesn't really start happening until the like end of the game when it comes to pumping the numbers. And I think the thing is, because what do you mean by precision? You think that every boss is like demanding that you do a specific thing to fight them?
Well, I'll give you a very specific example, which is, and this is because it's the most fresh one that's in my head because I fought Radigan and Elden Beast. But like, Radigan has an attack where he pulls back his big golden glowy hand, and if he hits you with it, he smashes you into dust. And the timing to avoid that is too precise. You have to do it at like the exact moment, and like I find that I miss like more often than I would, and I'm like, man, I really have to get it at like that exact time to avoid him.
Ooh, here's the thing.
That's what I mean by
I super incredibly fundamentally disagree with everything you just said about. So you mean the grab attack?
Yeah.
Okay. So one, it's a grab attack, which means you have to be. There's certain active frames, just like any swing, right? The easiest way to avoid a grab attack, it's not a precise dodge. It's not, I have to stand in front of him and do this at the right time. It's just don't be there. You know how this guy's not damaging me right now? Because I'm not in his range.
Yeah, but you have to get in the range to attack.
Right, but not when he's attacking. It's not your turn. Especially when someone's in the middle of a command go, you know? Like, that to me is, like, it's not the game is not asking you to roleplay, to precisely dodge that grab. The game is saying, he's going to hit you with something. You should probably get out of the way. And that's the only thing it's asking you to do. And that's true all the time. Like, literally all the time. And when it's not asking you to do that is when it's your turn to attack.
But I don't know. I'm very confused as you get hit over and over again by this guy's attacks that you could ever say that, like, you have to... one of these things this game is asking you to do is to roll at the right time frequently. Or move at the right time or whatever, but, like, well, you know, that is too hard.
So the other part of it is you were running a 100 poise build, which means you're mostly you're trying to walk through people's attacks and take less damage, right? So that's not what my build is, which is why I'm rolling and trying to be inside this dude's guts, because he has a hard time targeting me when I'm really close to him.
Yeah, this is how I fight this guy too. Don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, you stay close to him and you roll into him and whatever. But like, I don't know. This game is gonna ask you to do some precise inputs, and if you don't, you're gonna take a lot of damage. I don't feel like that's an unfair assessment. Fine, there are ways I could play a magic build and stand 100 feet away from the guy.
Yep.
And that's fine.
Or
I could
you could
do
have
that.
taken your existing build and put on a great shield and walked into most of the attacks, and then eventually realize you can't block Radigan's grab attack. So what you should do is run away. You know, like the answer's still the same for that attack. You know, that's kind of all I'm getting at is like whenever it's I have to do this really specific, like there's a couple of BS badly designed attacks in these games. Like those do exist. They definitely do exist. But like I can count those on like across all of the games they've made, like on my hands, you know?
Well, the other thing too, though, is I feel like with that specific attack, like if he's close to you, he'll smash you into the ground. But if he's not, he charges at you from across the entire arena.
Yes. So because that's how. So last time I described this combat system as fighting games but single player. And
okay, but wait. Before you do that whole spiel, then how is it not accurate that you're like, oh, we'll just stay far away from him? But that's not true either, because if you're far away from him, he's still going to charge at you from whatever distance.
That's because
they're still asking you to do
but that's because I'm
precise.
only talking about the one attack, because every single other thing in this game that does anything has an AI flowchart, which means that they will, this guy drops stuff. Give me that golden broom. which
yeah,
means
baby.
that depending on what I do and where I do it and when they are in the middle of some activity, it's going to change the next thing they do. So if you know how an enemy works, and this is when people are like, "Oh, you have to do this and fight the boss like 100 times this time." It's like, no, you don't have to do this. If you want to break this game over your knee, yeah, I can go in and I can probably beat this guy without ever rolling.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens. I'm gonna try.
Yeah, you just hit him a bunch and you break him.
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna
they'll
do
fall.
that.
Yeah.
You know, no problem because I know the timing on when he's vulnerable, and I can't get my riposte off, but I can still crush him. And boom, I didn't have to do nothing because I made sure he never got the chance to attack. Because yeah. So
This is all stuff I know, which is why like I think
So
it,
what's
I think
the-
I agree with.
I guess what's the confusing part for you then? Because you were asking me about the specific attack and like what you're supposed to do. So
Well, I just think it's a mischaracterization when you're like, well, if you stand far away from him, then it becomes easy. I think in that particular instance, that's not a correct characterization of the attack because he is still gonna hit you from no matter what distance you are. You still have to do something precise, or you're gonna take a lot of damage.
Okay, so you've misunderstood me. I don't mean you should just always be far away from him. I am saying that when you see him raise his arm, because it's a very, very, very specific long tell he has, instead of staring at him, if he's this thing right here and waiting for the right time to go, what you should do is the moment his arm goes up is, well, I didn't run, I crouched, but is just go. Just don't be there. Like that's it, you know.
But then he still rushes at you though, even if you get 50 feet away.
Well,
he's gonna come at you.
Well, he's gonna have a follow-up attack, yeah. But again, I'm talking about dealing with the grab, not the next thing he's gonna do. The grab. That's all.
No, the grab, he'll rush at you no matter what distance.
I wish I could teleport to this fight and do it right now and show you. I really do.
Fine. Maybe it depends on where he starts or doesn't or whatever. But like, if he does that hand back thing, I've done like, oh cool, well I'm far enough. He's not gonna slam down on me. He will rush at you from however far away.
Well, that just means you
are.
misread the range of his grab. Here's the thing. That's
No,
a
he'll
you
pro-
problem, not a the game.
No,
problem.
I'm saying like if the arena is a circle, if you're at one end of the circle and he's at the opposite end of the circle, he will dive at you from whatever distance till he's within range of you to hit you.
Yeah, but we're talking about when he's in grab range already. This is kind of what I mean, right? Is your understanding of the mechanics and how their AI works is fundamentally different from mine. So we're speaking two different languages. So I'm trying to figure out how to like, okay, the fight starts. He's holding the hammer and he turns around. What's the first thing he does?
He holds up the hammer and turns around?
Well, it's the cutscene that you always skip because you're a monster.
Oh yeah, I don't know what the cutscene is. Well, right when the fight like really starts, you have like a free option to run up and hit him like 3 times, which is nice. So I did that.
Yeah, because he's turning around from the cutscene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then well, which is great because you get like 3 hits, and then I think it's like the 5th hit I got to stagger in. But like, sure. But what's your question?
Okay, but then what does he do?
I don't know. It depends on where you are and what you're doing, probably.
It-
Or does he always do the 2-swing hammer
No,
jam?
it depends on where you are and what you're doing. So, like,
Yeah.
if you're right up in his face, he's got a chance to do the grab. He's got a chance to do all manner of close things
Sure.
that he does in that range. But he's
Sure.
not going to initiate the grab if you've decided to, when the fight starts, run away and start slinging rocks at him or something like that, right? He's going to respond differently. So,
Sure.
what I'm saying is when you're like, well, when he's on the other side of the arena, he's just going to dive at you from wherever, which, like, that's just not true. He is going to try and close the gap, of course, but it's not like, it's not like there's a jumpy, like, you know what I mean? But, like, they want to attack you. They want to stop you from sipping. And they're always aware of where you are relative to their position. And that's important to what it is that they're going to choose to do, to the point where you can manipulate the AI of a lot of these bosses if you know their AI flowcharts, to know, like, specifically the order of attacks they're going to do if you're standing in the right spots, you know? So, not that
Sure.
I certainly don't play the game that way. I'm not that good. But, like, you
Sure.
can,
But
theoretically.
I think in the case of me saying the bosses are too hard and too complex and require too much precision, I think if I have to know the AI flowchart or play the bosses that much to know them, it's still not my thing. And I don't know, take that specific attack out of it and switch it with 3 other attacks that Radigan has. I can think of a few of his attacks that are like frustrating to me, and that I'm like, cool, I'm gonna jump at this time when he slams his foot, and I miss it by like however many frames or whatever. And it just, I think there are a lot of moments where this game is asking too much precision of you, or it's too punishing. Honestly, I think my biggest frustration is that like I hate that so many of the bosses, like, they program to punish you for healing. Like,
Well, what else
and
are they
the
supposed
AI
to do?
of
They're supposed to just like, oh, I gotta let this little dude just gotta fill up his health bar real quick. Hang on.
Yeah, sure. Or like, I don't know, not punish you so quickly, but like those are like the most frustrating moments, is when you're like trying to get a moment to like heal and you can't seem to find it because the chains are so aggressive.
Oh.
Like that's definitely one of the most, those are like the times I got real frustrated, is when I'm like just trying to find that moment to heal and I keep getting hit time after time. Like that's where I get angry.
Speaking of, I actually would have a great example to show everybody about exactly how that works. Do you remember where on the map?
It's Glowy Hammer Magoo.
Yeah, no, but do you remember where the Phantom one is?
Yeah, turn off the map. He's like right to your left. He's like right behind you, I think. In like one of those holes to the left.
Oh, I might have.
There's like there's a dude, it looks like a regular NPC. It's not one of these guys. I think it's further down. But it is right in this little...
I'm pretty sure I'm close, so that we can talk about...
He's in like one of those holes.
That's what I thought.
You're going away from the holes.
Oh,
No, not these. He's like on the hill you were on.
Oh my god.
Yo, same thing.
What we could do is we could just look this up so that I could demonstrate this to
No, he's right there. I remember. I just did it. Keep running around those holes. Nope. Left. It's on this specific hill. There's an NPC in one of these holes. Unless you've killed him already.
Well, I mean, he would have turned into Margit. If you swing at him.
Well, yeah, if you kill him, he doesn't reappear, though.
No, he does.
Does he?
He does, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
I
know.
I think it's this one.
No, he's like talking to you. He's like a stand-up dude. He's not like an enemy.
Hmm.
He looks like Kenneth Haidt or something. Like you see very specifically an NPC like hanging out. Nah, you're too far again.
No, here's the thing. He's definitely just one of those dudes.
Is he?
Yeah. Hold on.
Well, I remember him being like alone,
Google
like
it, Andy.
standing and alone.
Google it, Andy, so we don't continue to embarrass ourselves on the internet.
Just run around. Just keep running around. We're talking about it.
Yeah.
Glowy Hammer Magoo is another one. I hate Glowy Hammer Magoo. He's my least favorite boss in the whole game.
He's like the best fight in the entire game. That's
much.
what I mean. You know why? Because he asks you to engage with the combat system on all these ways, in the specific ways that you don't like to.
Yeah, it's just too hard, man. I don't know. I don't need to. There's like a point in attempts where I'm like, I don't need to be doing this many attempts. I could be playing something else that's more fun. Like that's really the beginning and the end of it. And like I understood a lot more about this game the second time through. In particular, they really want you to do more heavy attacks. Like that's probably the biggest takeaway, that I was like, doing more heavy attacks is way more effective than a bunch of light attacks.
I mean, here's the thing. It was for you and the way that you like to play. I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at over and over again, is you're like, well, this is more effective. I'm like, it was for the way that you played, but I can sit and like...
No, I should send it to you. I found a great video in like, I think it was like right when the game came out too. I don't remember who it was. It wasn't Vati, but like, it was, and he was talking about Margit specifically. Like the premise of the video was like, what are they trying to teach you with Margit? And he was like, you know...
The toughest boss in these games, Gravity.
And dogs.
Mostly Gravity.
But like he did like a breakdown of this game compared to other Souls games, of like how much damage heavy attacks do and how much more likely they are to stagger, where he was like, you know, even if you were to do like 15 light attacks versus doing like 4 heavy attacks, like you're gonna stagger Margit on like 4 heavy attacks and stuff.
Oh, well, I mean, Yeah, I guess the reason I'm giggling is like I guess like I don't find heavy attacks do more stagger damage than light attacks to really be like insightful commentary on how the combat works. Is kind of all I'm getting at. So what I
It's
will
not
say,
insightful. I'm telling you, that's like one of the things I learned in my second playthrough.
yeah, you didn't know that the entire first playthrough.
No, I mean, why would I know inherently that they did? Maybe I picked it up at some point and I forgot, and it never came to the front of my brain. But like, no, I didn't know that.
That to
I
me
didn't
sounds
know
like
that
the more likely outcome there. You know?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, because here's the thing, I would just assume anything like this compared to wind up, which one of those is gonna hit the guy harder? You know, like I'm just
Well, I knew
I'm
it
just
did more
assuming
damage.
in literally any video game that if there's a stagger mechanic or anything like that, that the bigger thing is gonna do more of that. But that's also just me doing the I assume this about video games the same way that we all assume a picture of a floppy disk is a save icon. You know.
Sure. Well, I figured like I knew that the heavies did more damage, but like in the case of stagger damage, well, I assumed like I don't know, if the heavy does 1.5 more damage, then I assume it probably does 1.5 stagger damage as well. Like there's no indication of it otherwise doing more stagger damage or whatever because there's no visual indicator. So
Do you want me to explain how any of that works? I don't have all
Not
the numbers in
particularly.
my head, but
No, because I think that is enough needs to be said about it. Is like you're better off in the case where you can do 2 heavies versus like a bunch of light attacks. You're better off trying to get a heavy or 2 in because it's gonna be way more effective. I think that's as far as anyone needs to understand about it. You know what I mean?
oh, I mean, okay, so you're just saying if I have an opportunity to attack a boss after he's done with his combo, and I somehow have that much time, I should take the 2 heavies over whatever number of light attacks I can get in there. Is that what,
Or you
is that what
should
you're
take
saying?
1 heavy over 2 light attacks, even if it's just that simple.
I mean, again, it all depends on the build and the weapon and what it is that you're doing. You know, like if your
You wanna
goal
stagger him.
if your goal is to stagger him, then yeah. But if someone's like, I'm gonna do my 2 heavies and I don't understand why he's not staggered, and they're using like a dagger, you know, like that's why, like, again, every single thing is so situation dependent. You know, and that's kind
Sure.
of why I think this is a game of systems, and it is always just going to be games of systems. The game doesn't ever, like, a fight isn't designed for you to run in and roll in these specific ways, you know, like it's, hey, he's probably going to try and roll catch you with these types of attacks and these delays, but overall pretty much any build's going to work otherwise. Like that's like the only common thing that's going to be across any build if you're dodging is the relative timing of the dodges, you know.
But no matter
really
what
it.
build you're gonna have to dodge enemies.
I mean, probably, most likely.
I mean,
yeah.
definitely, because they all have ranged attacks as well. It's not like you're gonna have to dodge, and you're gonna have to learn, and you're gonna have to.
I don't know, man. These guys aren't going to
Take
be
a lot
able to
of
do too
damage.
much about this.
Well, sure, these guys, like the actual overworld combat and like the regular enemies are like not a problem for me. It's just like I feel like they could have tuned the bosses down like 50%, and I would have been like, this game's amazing for me. Like I think the bosses are designed to be difficult. Obviously.
I mean, I
they're
hope
just
so. Otherwise, why?
Yeah.
You know.
they're just tougher than I'd like them to be. Like I don't know. In fact, the only reason I beat Radigan, and I didn't tell you this story yet because I was gonna save it for the pod, but I was like trying to fight him, and I got to probably like 20 attempts or something, and I was like, all right, cool, like. The bosses in this game are already my least favorite part of this. Like, there's no reason for me to beat the final boss just to say I did it. Like, if I'm not having fun, then, like, I've already exhausted the fun part of this game for me. So why, like, why beat my head against something I'm not having fun doing? So I was like, cool, I'm going to start a new game on Dragon Quest XI.
Oh my God!
So
So you actually didn't beat the game. You lied to me.
Let me finish the story. Let me finish the story. So I was like, I'm gonna start a new game in Dragon Quest XI, and this is where I'm done with the game. So I did that, and I played Dragon Quest XI, and the next day, it occurred to me that I never did in this playthrough. I never did the Volcano Manor. What's it called? Legacy dungeon. I had gotten up to the Godskin guy, and then I must have just warped out of somewhere and like forgot about it. And then later I got warped to fight Serpent Boy, which I didn't know because the first time through I had done the whole Legacy dungeon.
Yeah, you can either go all the way there and find a teleporter, or do the side quest and Tanith will teleport you.
Yeah, so I saved that little red mark, and I did the side quest, and I got warped there. So the day after I had put the game down, I was like, oh man, like I never went back and did the rest of Volcano Manor. Let me see if I like remember where to go after the Godskin duo. Like I was like, I think there's like a backside path that leads you through the volcano. So I went and I did that, and I did some of it, and I played with the weapons, and I was like, well, if I've got the game on, I'll give Radigan like 2 more attempts or something, like while I'm sitting here. I may as well just give it one more crack. So I think I fought him 3 times, and the 3rd time I was getting so frustrated that I was like, if this isn't the time, like it's either this time or never, and I'm just gonna put it down after this because I'm not having fun. And then I beat him, and I was like, cool, all right, I beat him. And so, like, I literally, only because I decided to pick up the controller and do the Volcano Manor thing again, I was like, let me give it a couple more cracks, and then I ended up doing it. But I hated every minute of it.
You know why you hated every minute of it, Mister? I don't want to engage with most of the combat mechanics. Is because
I do want to engage with it. You're oversimplifying.
I am. You're right, but I'm not totally wrong. But anyway. The reason why you struggle with that, you know why? Because that god doesn't bleed at all.
Yeah, I changed my weapon off of bleed, dude. I'm not an idiot.
Oh, okay. Thank goodness. I was gonna say, I'm like, listen, man. If you're sitting here tickling him with a weapon doing less damage, you can't get your status effect down and go, the game too hard. I was gonna make fun of you.
But again, I don't know. I don't know where your assertion that I'm not engaging comes from, because I'm like, well, I have to dodge a lot of his attacks and he's gonna hit me, and I get frustrated.
Well, yeah, but that's. But as you said, that's like every boss, and you're like, I don't like the bosses, but like to me, that is kind of still like the combat system is it's asking you to. So I'm gonna come.
And I like the combat system. It's just too hard. Like Radigan, for example, he's got this big cool glowy hammer, right? And he's got, one of the things he does is he's like, cool, I'm gonna swing down, I'm gonna swing my glowy hammer down, and then I'm gonna swing my glowy hammer up. There's like a two specific string, and I'm like, cool, I mastered that 2 attack string. I can dodge it with consistency, and that felt cool. And you know what he can do for his third string immediately, like with no pause, the 3rd part of that string can be like 10 different things. And like, it's just like, yeah. When I finally got to the point where I was like, oh cool, I learned how to dodge this 2-string attack, it's like, well, it's still asking me to really, really have strong reflexes on whatever the 3rd thing is going to be, and pay attention. And I whiffed that 3rd thing so many times because there's like 10 things it can be. And like, fine, like, but I would call that engaging with the combat system and learning it and doing my best to effectively like deal with it. But like that complexity of the 3rd thing can be 10 different things is just too frustrating for me, because like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not that good.
Here's the thing,
but like,
here's the thing, honestly, you and a lot of really, really grumpy people who have thought that these games have been terrible since either after Demon Souls or after Dark Souls 1. Because they don't like the combat being anything but like incredibly slow. Andy, you started Dark Souls 1 a long time ago and then put it down. If you went back to Dark Souls 1, you would absolutely annihilate that game. You wouldn't even
Bro.
you wouldn't need a bleed build. You would destroy Dark Souls 1 so hard it's not even funny, because that was my experience with Dark Souls 1 as my second Souls game. I annihilated that game. It wasn't hard at all because I had already played Dark Souls 3.
Bro, I got news for you. I annihilated this game too. I tore through like the last 15 bosses before Radigan on my first try, like no problem. Like,
Yeah, but
again, like I feel like you're mischaracterizing. I'm not like a super grumpy man who thinks this game is trash and hates the combat.
but I wasn't trying to lean back into that though. I was trying
okay.
to say that you're learning from this, and like, but again, like that specific piece, like what I'm not attempting to hit Inquisitor Giza here, mostly because I have dodged most of these attacks without ever hitting the dodge button.
Sure.
Because I know
there's a lot of games.
Because you just need to like understand the spacing and baiting those types of attacks, and how I can get behind and backstab very easily like that. You know, like that's just all those things.
These are all things I know.
Yeah, but you don't like doing this nearly as much as I do.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I feel like you're overblowing it, which is I'm like, me personally, I think the bosses are a little too hard for my liking, and that's just my taste.
Oh yeah, no,
that's like literally the beginning and the end.
I mean,
of it.
I mean, we've made clear that you have that as a preference, but that's not a particularly interesting statement to make for your internet podcast. You know, that's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah,
I'm trying to explore it a little bit. You know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I don't know. You went right to like you and all the grumpy people who hate these games, and I was like, I never said I hated these games.
Yeah, you do. You always tell me you hate this game. You hate all the bosses. You hated every second of it. Every time.
I did hate a lot of the first run.
Which is weird that you went as far as you did regardless. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, look, man, the world itself, it's just like, it's such a joy to just like uncover every inch of this world. Like, I don't know, it's just, and again, like I liked the combat the first time. Like the combat feels good and it's fun, and most of the enemies in the world are not going to give you that much trouble, especially like you said with the ogre guy. Like, right, like a lot of just going through the world is learning, like, well, if I get 3 hits on this ogre before he's even aggroed, then he's going to do precisely 0 damage to me because he stands no chance. Like, so kind of learning the level design and how the enemies work and stuff is fun. But like, you rolling into that door right there, when I found that my first time through, I was like, yo, this game rules. Like, that's my favorite. Like, that stuff is why I just kept getting stuck in.
Well, and that's why I also love these games. So Elden Ring was the first one that I actually got to play like as it dropped, because I had gotten into Souls, I probably mentioned this last episode, when the second DLC for Dark Souls 3 was dropping, and a friend of mine got me to play the base game with him, and then I was like, oh, I get these games now. Then I played Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne, and then eventually this came out. But this was the first game that I got to play day and date where, hey, I took that day off of work, and you know who else knew anything about the game? Nobody. Just like me. All of us at Square Zero, you know?
Yeah.
And that's cool. And it was the same thing for the DLC too, you know? And that was just, you know, a month and a half ago now. Not even. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I also love that level of it, but because I'm on Journey 4, you know, like that discovery thing for me, it's, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but like, I'm sure you would love playing Shadow of the Colossus like over and over again. And I think the only reason I would play Shadow of the Colossus a second time is because it's been like 20 years, and I would probably play the remake and be like, wow, look how much better it looks.
Oh yeah,
You
I've
know?
only played Shadow of the Colossus once. That's not a game I would replay a ton either.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. Because for me, to me, the reason why I picked that as the example is, to me, a puzzle game like that, because that's really what Shadow of the Colossus is. It's a puzzle game where you happen to be climbing on a dude and you have action commands, but like you're figuring out how to get to the right spot to do what you're doing, you know? Do you agree with that? It's at least how I think of it, you know?
Totally, yeah.
Because there's like an answer to that game, I can't ever see myself going back to it because I know the answer, you know? And there's not as much joy in doing that. The discovery thing is exactly the same for me. Whereas you're like, I'll play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom forever, basically, you know? I'm like, I literally had my fill of it and was like, I'm never playing these ever again because
Well,
I'm just done, you know? Like, and that's like the disconnect between the two of us on like that particular thing we value in games, I think, you know?
I disagree. I actually think we're 100% the same on that in terms of like replaying Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Well, I haven't replayed Tears of the Kingdom, but replaying Breath of the Wild, the fun isn't the discovery the second time, unless I haven't played it in 3 years and I've forgotten some of the places. The fun of replaying it is I just love the moment-to-moment gameplay so much, which is why you have replayed this game 4 times, because you love the moment-to-moment gameplay. I'm not replaying it for the discovery. I'm replaying it because I just have fun climbing things and doing the shrines.
Oh yeah, I had fun doing the shrines the first time, and then I was like, okay, I think the mechanics in this game are super clunky.
I love it. And you know, like, not to get on a tangent of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but like those games like lower my blood pressure. Like I turn them on and I run around and I hear the little foley of Link's like footsteps, and I'm like, I feel myself getting healthier. Oh, like there's just something about the world and all the little things in that game that like make me feel relaxed and wonderful.
Yeah, man, they're very good at doing that. I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, but that was part of why I played Breath of the Wild so much, and then it basically like the reason I stopped because it lost that effect on me. I was like, well, I kind of used all that up, I guess. So I'm gonna put it down now.
No, I think we're very similar in terms of our approach to exploration, because like the exploration is the draw in this game as well, but like I think for me there was an element the second time of knowing, like, because there are moments where like this game trolls you and shot an enemy at me that I wasn't expecting, that like were burned into my brain. And the second time I was like, oh cool, well I don't have to go through the stress of getting troll murdered by some enemy I've never seen before. I remember from the level design that they're there, right, and I stand a better chance. So I actually think in that respect, like I kind of liked, oh yeah, like I remembered all these guys.
Oh, I knew I was getting caught by that. I was like, there's nothing I can do.
But like I kind of liked the second time. I was a little bit more relaxed going through because it was like, oh well, I know a lot of what the game is going to throw at me, and it made me feel more equipped to deal with it, you know?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is like I'm also like, full disclosure, I think I'm terrible about talking and playing video games at the same time. So the fact that I'm doing any amount of combat at all and managing to speak and have any amount of articulation, I'm like, wow, cool, right now.
Then just ride your horsey, man. You don't have to fight.
Oh no. It's but I like the fighting. That's the thing, and that's exactly what we're talking about, and that's kind of what I was going to get to. Is you play Breath of the Wild to like lower your blood pressure and stuff, and this game clearly increases your blood pressure, but it doesn't increase mine, you know, and it doesn't trigger that thing in my brain. And I guess what I'm getting at is less maybe about we value the discovery thing differently. I think we have very different tolerances for those specific aspects of it, if that makes sense. Like we may engage with it somewhat similarly, but you will lean more heavily towards one side of it than I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
you know,
I think there's a specific thing in Daryl Talks Games, the psych play guy. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He talks about there's one video, and I don't remember what it is or the name of it to shout him out right now, but if you haven't looked up Daryl Talks Games, he's really great, and he talks about psychology. But there's one subject he's come back to in a lot of videos, which is are you playing a game to have a good time, or are you playing a game to avoid having a bad time?
Yes.
And I think part of it is that I can get a little bit like I can lean a little bit on the other side of like I'm trying to avoid having a bad time, and like the stress that the bosses in these games bring out in me brings out that side of me a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yes. And you know what's
Yeah.
interesting is I swear it may have actually been Gerald Talks Games, but I saw another video recently that talked about, I'd never heard the term before, but I think it's kind of talking about the same thing, prickly gameplay versus soft gameplay choices.
Yeah, it was Raz. You sent
Oh,
me
it's
that
Raz.
video.
That's right. Yeah, another
Yes.
Rasputin, another fantastic YouTube video essayist, also on Nebula, I believe. Shout outs to people on Nebula. They're all great. Prickly gameplay versus soft gameplay, and it's very clear, like that statement right there. Also hilarious, that guy got stuck in the rock. It became very clear the moment he said that. I was like, that's me and Andy. I'm a prickly gameplay person, and Andy's a soft gameplay person. I am.
And I'm not.
I like I prefer the term friction and frictionless almost more.
Yeah.
Personally, but either way, I think it's expressing the same sentiment. If there's very little interesting in the way of soft gameplay to me after a certain point. I literally am like, okay, I've seen what this is. I'm done now. I hit that point.
Yeah.
And I don't hit it super fast, but I will hit it, you know? And I think you probably would hit that point eventually, but it's going to take you like 9 times as long as me, you know?
Well, I think, and this is interesting because I had thought about this exact thing too. And like, I think it's not necessarily that I prefer one or the other. I think it depends on what the game is going for and what it's executing, because like Dragon Quest, in particular Dragon Quest XI, is like, it's like the soft gameplay game. Like, in terms of like, I don't want to say Elden Ring is trying to make the player have a bad time, but I think the world inherently, not the developers or the bosses or whatever, but like the world is not interested in the player. Like,
No,
the world does
you
not
are
want.
literally just a dude.
Yeah, like the world does not care about you in any sense of the word, which I think is like precisely why this game is cool and interesting. Like that prickly element of it is really interesting and cool to me. Whereas like Dragon Quest is like your buddy whom I don't know who calls it a warm hug. It's like Dragon Quest XI, more than any other game, it wants you to have a great time. Like, it wants you, it is embracing you with open arms at all times. But, like, I think that's because that's the experience they want you to have, which is, like, to get immersed in this really cozy world and experience this awesome, like, heartwarming story, which is not always as heartwarming. Like, Dragon Quest has a little bit of a thing where you're like, oh, this is darker than I thought it was.
Oh, no.
But, oh, you horsed right off the cliff. Oh!
Yeah,
Nice
you
save.
thought.
Yeah, but, like, I think in Dragon Quest XI's case, like, I think it is incredibly soft and cozy, and it works for what they're trying to accomplish. And when I'm in the mood for that, I'm in the mood for that. You know, I don't think I inherently value one more than the other, but
That's
you
fair.
definitely love prickly, where like I can be a little bit averse to it.
Yeah, I guess
more
the
than you can.
difference between you and me with the prickly thing is, I guess, kind of like when we're talking about those, a game that I'm going to revisit. Because like you said, I'll agree with you on, I will play a soft game when it's very clear that that's what something's trying to be. If it's like a puzzle game or something that's just trying to give me vibes. I would call Balatro a soft game, right? I love Balatro, right? I'm not really into roguelite things normally, but we got Hades and Balatro apparently are the two things that really get my goat regardless. And I think Balatro is great at the thing that it does, and maybe one day I'll get sick of it because I just won't want its vibe anymore for whatever reason, but I don't see that day coming for a while because I've definitely dropped probably like 50 hours on that game just playing roguelite poker, you know, just because I think it's fun and it's not meant to be a stressful experience, and I'm just like, oh, I lost, or oh, cool, I came up with this crazy build, and that's really it, you know. It's not a stressful thing. But I'm trying to think of what's another good example of a soft game, you know. I'm trying to think of one that I would probably play once and be like, yeah, great game, never gonna play it again. You know, like just,
I mean,
just
I want to
not
feel
gonna
like
happen.
Pokemon is the other like king of soft games.
Yeah, you know what? And that's why I stopped playing Pokemon after Ruby.
Yeah, yeah. Pokemon's the king of soft games as
It's
well.
been the same thing since then, you know, and that's
Yeah.
fine. And yeah, my singular revisit to Pokemon was a couple summers ago. I did a randomizer of Heart Gold because I had never actually played Heart Gold before, and I wanted to do a randomizer to see what it was like, and it was more challenging Pokemon. So even in my revisit to Pokemon, I attempted to make it more prickly than it was, because that was the only way I
Yeah.
was interested in engaging with it anymore. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean,
Pokemon has a ton of incredibly fond memories for me. You know, it's just I don't really see the need to play the same thing like 7,000 times when I don't think the gameplay is that interesting. You know, whereas this is prickly. You know.
Yeah, I think on the whole, like, I don't like prickly as much as you, but I think I do like it. I just think, like, I don't know. Again, in like the case of this is like a pretty good boss. This is a boss that I would say I enjoy.
You know what's super funny is everyone
People
hates
hate
this
this
boss
boss.
because of how many times they reused it.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's another thing actually that's like a hot take that I've never told you. Like, I actually like how much they reuse the bosses. I know everyone is like, that seems to be one of the biggest gripes, is everyone's like, oh, reused content. But like, I don't know. I like that I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I already learned a ton about how this boss works. Like, fighting another one is way preferable to me than them throwing a new one at me. Because throwing a new one at me, I'm going to get my butt handed to me like 15 times.
I mean, so here's the thing. I think some of it's a little bit excessive, but in a lot
Sure.
of ways, I think it's very similar to the older school game design ethos of, hey, remember when you fought this thing before? Well, now he's a slightly different color and he's a lot stronger, but you are also a lot stronger. So have fun. I think it's like
Yeah.
the exact same energy to me in like a lot of those cases. So I don't mind it too much, but there's definitely some. The ulcerated tree spirit in specific, they use it like genuinely like
More
a dozen
than
times. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, I can think of like a bunch of them offhand.
I can
but-
think of one
but-
spot where there's 3 in one room.
No, I don't know. I don't know if I ever made it to that. I probably in the snowy consecrated snowfield. is
Nah,
my guess.
it's in the Ashen Capital. So after you do Fair Missoula. Oh, I can't get on my horse. That's right.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny because I feel like I pretty thoroughly explored that place.
You
Do remember
definitely
where it
missed
is?
a huge wide open area that is actually. I remember also coming across and being like, oh, okay, cool. And then one of them popped out of the ground. I was like, okay, whatever, cool. Killed him.
Yeah.
And then I kept going. And then a second one pops out of the ground. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And then I left that area and read online that if I had walked to another corner, a third one would have shown up. But I walked around the spawn of whatever the third one was and got all the items that I wanted without doing it on purpose and just didn't fight the third one.
Yeah, that's crazy. See, it honestly I honestly really like that. I like that so many of the bosses like reappear and stuff because I don't know, it felt like, oh cool, this is way more forgiving than them throwing something brand new at me. And B, like, you kind of feel rewarded for like learning how the ulcerated tree spirit worked the first time because now like your knowledge pays off again. But in particular, I like that boss because I feel like he's really readable and easy to dodge once you know how he works. And like, I don't know, maybe it's just the too much complexity thing, but like I'm fine with a game being hard. I mean, unless it's not too hard. But in general, I'm fine with a game being too hard if like I'm like, oh, I died to that attack. I just have to jump a little bit earlier next time or whatever, and then I can pull it off the next time or the time after that. But I feel like there's a level of complexity with many of the bosses where, like, no matter how many times I fight them, there's just so much going on that I can't really seem to get a handle or a rhythm on many of the things they're doing.
So-
Like I just think it's a little bit too complex or difficult.
So
some of the time.
here's a question, because I find it very interesting. You think the ulcerated tree spirit's like the most readable thing. Is it because he's big? Because to me, I think the biggest strength of the bosses, and this is why I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that, and it's also making me wonder if it's part of why you feel that way about certain attacks. When you're fighting a boss,
Yeah.
what do you... This is going to sound a little strange. When he's gearing up to do an attack, what are you looking at specifically?
I mean, like if you're talking like, if we're talking like Moog for, let's do like Moog. 'Cause
Yeah.
I remember fighting Moog too. Like, or no, not. No, let's go back to Radigan, because he has another thing where he's like up in the air, and he's got his arm up. You can see his elbow, and usually I feel like a lot of those attacks, I'm waiting for the exact moment that they start to move towards me. There's another boss too that I can't think of off the top of my head, but I remember being like, all right, I have to hit roll precisely as they start to move towards me, and I'll be in the safe zone. But I feel like a lot of them, it's like, yeah, the moment that they start to move is when you want to roll. Some of them. That's when you have your iframes.
Gotcha. So, I guess in trying to figure out when an enemy's active frames are, so like his startup frames are like whenever there's an enemy. I don't know if these guys are gonna be good for. Okay, yeah, he's got a sword. Right. First try. I haven't practiced parry in a long time. You know how I knew when the timing for that was?
Because he was.
I
Gonna make
watched
contact with you.
specifically his hand. You know.
Yeah.
You just gotta, because all the feints and delays and stuff that happen. Ooh, there's a lot more startup on that buckler parry than I thought there was.
Yeah.
I just don't understand this. But yeah, you watch like the hand most of the time, and obviously that doesn't work for every enemy because not every enemy's got hands.
Sure.
But whatever the appendage of whatever it is, just watching that is almost always going to tell you not just the timing of it, but also like where it's going. You know, if that makes sense for you to be able to project like where they're actually hitting. Because there's a lot of times with a lot of big boss swings and stuff where they'll do a big swing and they will just go right over your head if you're standing in the right spot. If I'm like one or two steps to the left, he'll just whiff, you know, straight up.
Yep. Yep.
So-
Yeah, so in like, you know, of course, like that example that I gave was the one I thought of. Like the Erd Tree Avatar is another one that I really love, who's like extremely readable. I feel like it's pretty easy to move out of the way of his attacks without being incredibly precise. Like I felt like I was getting better every time I fought it and understanding where my iframes were and stuff. It's just like a lot of them, it's just like there's so much complexity that like I never felt like like obviously I was getting better, but I never felt like I was getting substantially better even after like 20 attempts and stuff. And that's where I'm like, that's fine. This is just not for me.
Yeah,
you know?
You know what's funny about the Erd Tree Avatars is that is a reskin of the tutorial boss from Dark Souls 1, the boss designed to teach you how to play Dark Souls. So the fact that it ends up being, you know, all that telegraphed and blah blah blah, you know, that's that tracks, you know, that is specifically how it was designed. Now the Erd Tree Avatars have some new fancier attacks with their like elemental butt slams and stuff, but even there's that boss in Dark Souls 1 is reused twice actually. So there's 3 versions of him. So there's the tutorial version, the harder version of the tutorial boy, and then a fire version of the tutorial boy.
Yeah. I mean, the butt slam in particular, I feel like I know the timing of that butt slam so well that it's like he goes up in the air, you start walking to the right, and then you roll at the exact moment, and you're like right behind him, and you can get a heavy on him immediately or whatever. Same with, as much as I hate Chloe Hammer Magoo, like with all of me, his big hammer attack when he's in the air, like when he comes down, it's like I know exactly where my iframes are to roll through that thing, and that feels so good.
See,
like
Margit / Morgott is a great example. I think every single one of his attacks is incredibly well telegraphed. His animations are so very, very good in my opinion. That's also part of why like I'm a little surprised you're like I hate him so much, because like I feel like he's one of the easiest ones to read, even if he asks more of you than some other
No.
bosses, you know?
His first phase, probably. His second phase, no,
Oh,
because
second
he's got
phase
a
is
lot of
even
attack.
easier. No?
No, he's
Oh.
got one where he does like 4 attacks like right in a row in like super fast succession.
Yeah.
He like spins around and hits you, but like nah, he and same thing too. Like his second phase, it was always like the strings. You'd be like, all right, cool, he's got this attack, I'm gonna roll into it. But there's like 5 variations of what he can do next, and maybe I don't have the reflexes or whatever. But like his second phase is always where I got roll mad.
Gotcha.
But you know, all that is to say, like if they were all as difficult as like the Erdtree Avatar or the ulcerated tree spirit, I'd be like, this game's difficulty is great because I can really wrap my head around those bosses and how they work. Yeah.
See, that's it.
But
I find it. I just think it's like different. I don't know how to describe the specifics in the boss design. I'd have to spend a lot of time thinking about the difference between like those two groups that you basically put together, because while I don't really know where it tracks on the ulcerated tree spirit side, there's a definite difference in the way that the Erdtree Avatar and kind of like it has been translated. It's like quicker and works for Elden Ring a lot more than it did as the Asylum Demon in Dark Souls 1. But I just think there is a fundamental difference in the way that they've done the boss design, which is why I'm curious if even... I think you should eventually go back and give Dark Souls 1 or 3 a try again. Now that you've played so much Elden Ring, I'm curious what your opinion of those games would be. I don't know that we necessarily have to do that for like the podcast or something, or for you to do like a whole playthrough, but I think you should just like mess around with them a little bit and be like, oh, okay. Because remember when you were texting me all the times, like, I don't understand how I beat Radon. That's going to be you through the entirety of revisiting those games. You're going to be like, oh, this is like easy. This is like super easy. Because you've done more and harder already.
yeah, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Again, with the complexity, like the thing it makes me think of a little bit is like, I think another reason I like the ulcerated tree spirits and the Erdtree avatars returning is it kind of reminds me of like a Monster Hunter vibe a little bit of that you're seeing. But like one of the reasons I really like playing Monster Hunter, even though it's hard, in like similar in ways that this game is hard, I feel like there's a more consistent language that is conveyed to you about what monsters are going to do, like throughout the whole game. Like you, how am I trying to say this? There's like a consistency to like the type of attacks that monsters can do to you that just about every monster will do. Like, for example, if you stand behind a monster or in a specific position, they're almost certainly going to do like a horizontal spin and swipe their tail at you. And once you've fought enough monsters, you sort of just like second nature are ingrained. Like the monster is going to do this type of tail attack, and this is the timing I need to do to roll through it or around it or whatever. And like, I feel like the more you play it, the more you sort of just inherently understand how every monster is going to behave, because they've so consistently like demonstrated that like language of how monsters act, where like in this game it like obviously you get a better handle on it, but I don't feel like there's that consistency throughout. Like I feel like learning how to fight Margit, I don't feel like in a conscious way helped me fight like the Erdtree Avatar like in the same way, you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
'Cause,
Yeah, I guess that's just the communication of the language of the combat, I guess, in these games. I don't know, because I do get that. Like you said
Totally.
that you stopped in Dark Souls 3 right after the Abyss Watchers, which to me is the fight in that game that is, hey, have you figured out how to play Dark Souls 3 like at least okay? Because if you haven't, this is going to be a problem. That's that fight, and getting past that fight to me is like the okay. Even if you end up with a hard fight at some point that you're bashing your head against, you are capable of learning what this game is asking of you to do to beat that boss. you know.
Yeah.
And you didn't
I think
ever have that moment with any boss in this game. Is what it
Right.
sounds
Wait,
like.
wait,
At least you
which moment?
that moment of, I feel like I get this game after this moment. Now, we talked about it last time. You said you never had like a or eureka moment. It's just been
Right.
like a slow burn of, you came back to a point where you're like, oh, I guess I did that better this time, didn't I?
Yep. Yeah, and I think again it comes down to complexity and punishment, because I just think that Monster Hunter, while it's tough, I don't think the monster behaviors are as complex as something like Margit in this game. Or maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's my feeling. And I think even in the case that the monsters are tough, even if you mess up, it's not going to be as punishing as something in these games, or at least these are like my gut feelings as I'm trying to say. Maybe I'm wrong about how the numbers shake out, but like in Monster Hunter, if you're going to get like one-shotted or something that's going to nearly one-shot you, the monsters are going to wind up for like a long time. Like you are going to know that something is about to happen and you have a lot of time to get away from it. Whereas like if you make a mistake in just like hand to hand, you do a couple whiffs, it's not going to take away half or most of your health.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the one game with slower combat than Dark Souls, Monster Hunter.
Yo, Monster Hunter rules.
You know, here's the thing.
Hunter's-
Genuinely, I wish that I had more active knowledge about Monster Hunter to be able to talk about it with you on this, because you're probably right, but I don't know anything about the complexity of Monster Hunter, because I played like an hour of Worlds not terribly long after it came out, and I went, wow, this game is really cool. I also don't really want to learn a new thing right now, and then I put it down and I just never picked it back up. It wasn't that it was bad, I just never got back to it. So I just got to do it at some point, because I would love to talk about the comparison between that combat system and this combat system, because I hear people make comparisons between them that I assume are mostly, you have to think about the button before you hit it, which I don't think is like a really
yeah.
You know, that's not really, I don't know.
I think the biggest difference really that comes to mind is that Monster Hunter really isn't at all about iframes. Like, I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand immediately. It's way more about positioning than it is about iframes. You can't really roll through stuff in Monster Hunter nearly as easily.
I'm curious if I lied to you and told you that the world didn't have iframes, if you just would have played Elden Ring differently and if you would have found it more enjoyable. Because I would argue that this game is also primarily about positioning. You just so happen to have an iframe button for those specific scenarios, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, like I know that sounds weird and kind of reductive, but like you can avoid so much by just standing in the right spot rather than rolling,
totally,
you know.
Yes, this I know, like, and there are certain bosses, again, they don't come to mind specific examples, but I definitely know there are some that it's just like walk a little bit to the left while they're targeting you and you'll just totally dodge the sword or whatever as it comes down. But I mean, like, I think in an even more specific way, like Monster Hunter is all of these like literal giant hitboxes, and a lot of your attacks are like bringing like an axe in a specific direction, forward or down or left and right. So like it definitely is a lot more about positioning, just because it's like these giant things moving in like directions, where like this game is like it definitely is about positioning, but Monster Hunter is more about positioning than iframes, you know.
I'm curious that weapon angles and swings matter as much in Monster Hunter, when like, because I know you can attack specific body parts and stuff, but like they're all still like really big, right? So what I guess what positioning wise with like the direction of the weapon swing do you tend to gain over like a different weapon swing? Because I'm genuinely curious, like, because in this game a lot of enemies are very mobile, and so having something that is big and sweeping, if you have a bunch of enemies around you, makes a huge difference. If you have something that has a high arc for enemies that are maybe flying or something like that, all that stuff matters. But like when a boss in this game is huge, like I have to get up in his business, and like basically whatever weapon I have is gonna have enough range, If that makes, you know what I mean? I'm just curious
Yeah.
how it's different. Because I don't grasp it because I haven't played it. You know, that's all.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of like specifically like um the switch axe which I play, like what
Oh, I
you
remember
do is
liking that. Playing around with it.
oh
It's
yeah.
cool.
Oh yeah. The switch axe has like the first attack that you do is like this big axe that like comes down. But you also have an attack that like sweeps directly back up, if you know what I'm saying. So it's like
Oh,
horizontally in front of you, and it's like a big giant line, and it comes down and it comes straight back up. So like for example, like you have to be, if you're perpendicular to like a monster tail and you want to cut the monster tail, you want to do the attack that swings down and the attack that swings directly back up for 2 hits. Whereas if you swing down and then you suddenly do the horizontal attack that like does an arc in front of you, it's gonna miss the tail entirely. Right. So like
okay.
or like if you do the attack but you're kind of facing to the left instead of forward, like you're not facing directly at the monster part that you want to hit, you're gonna miss. So it's just, there's all those little nuances in just like positioning and yeah, I guess just positioning.
Oh, it's the. Oh, I was gonna make a bad joke. I'm trying to keep it clean. It's the Godskin Apostle.
I hate this guy. This guy's not so bad. I didn't hate him as much this time through.
It's only when it's both of them. Is really
The one at the bottom of the Kaled Tower though, he's tough. He like will beat you up. Like
if I remember, I can't remember. Just because again,
he's a lot stronger than this one, I think.
I can't remember which one's stronger because I can't remember if it's he's really strong for being in Kaled or if he's just stronger than this dude straight up. It's one of the two. But I
think
remember.
he's just stronger, is my sense, because in both playthroughs, you go to that dude after Radon, so you're not exactly weak. And this guy obviously comes later, but like the one at the bottom of the Kaled Tower, like he got my goat both playthroughs. I got frustrated fighting that guy. He's a jerk. Oh yeah, he tried to get you.
Kick him right in the face, you know.
So yeah. So again, my sense is when it comes to Monster Hunter versus this game, it's complexity and it's how punishing the game is my feeling. Of course, late game Monster Hunter, that is not the case, because the late game Monster Hunter is ridiculously difficult, but it's meant to be played with like 4 players, and it's meant to be an insane challenge.
I don't think this game's complicated or punishing. I just pushed his face in. Easy.
Yeah, he was. I beat him first time too in this place.
Because you're a little baby.
Yeah, this game's hard. I suck at this game. I mean,
I come full circle back to just an Andy's just a little baby. We talk about a video game on a podcast for like an hour and a half, and then I just go and in conclusion, Andy should get good. The end.
Yeah, I suck for sure. What's your like favorite? If I ask like, what's your favorite part, or what's your like favorite area or thing in this game? What is it for you?
Oh, that is such a difficult question. So, do you mean just like overall experience or memory, or like my favorite thing I'm looking forward to on replay? Because I feel like those are all like a little different.
Well, I think area or location.
That's so tough.
Because I'll say mine first if I'll.
Yeah. Go for it while I ponder a bit.
My favorite location by far is definitely the Altus Plateau. Because I feel like when you get there, the game is just like, hey man, here's like, what's the very first area of this game?
Limgrave.
Like when you play Limgrave for the first time, it's just such a nice experience because it's really beautiful and it's really relaxing, and there's so much to find in Limgrave.
Oh yeah.
And like when you get to Altus Plateau, the game is just like, here's Limgrave Part 2, my guy. It looks amazing. It's really beautiful, and you just get this huge, wide open world again, and it's Part 2. Like both times I got to Altus Plateau, my first playthrough and this one, I was just like, yo, I just love being here. There's so much to find and there's so much to do, and it's just like this feeling of plenty, you know?
Yeah, you know.
And I love the look of Altus Plateau. I think it looks stunning. I love like the cool orangey, darker shaded trees and stuff. It looks unbelievable.
I have such an incredible soft spot for Limgrave because of how incredible an opening area I think it is. I think it
Yeah.
is and not to dog on the other areas of the game, even though there are some spots that have their issues. I think Limgrave is so well crafted because it has to be, because it has to give you the right first impression to get you to want to keep playing the game, and also to like teach you just enough about the game where you're going to engage with it and be like, oh, okay, I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing. Like just a little bit, like just enough to keep you going and to get you into that struggle mode. Because ultimately, this game is you get to try as many times as you want, and the boss never learns anything. You know, like that's what this comes down to. Is it is exactly what you put into it, and I feel like Limgrave does a really good job of teaching that, in my opinion. But I have also played a lot of these games already, and so I already have some idea of what FromSoft is going for, you know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and Limgrave, it has like this cool benefit of it has like all these different areas it can lead you to, right? Because you're kind of getting pointed towards Stormvale, but if you go south
Oh,
and
yeah.
find that extra island,
Yeah,
you're
let's
like,
just-
oh, cool.
Let's
Like,
just do it. I'm poking around the map.
or
I'm just
you
gonna
could,
go.
or you could go to Caelid. Like, they really do give you a few options of places that are outside Limgrave.
And I think the most interesting part about that is, and you mentioned it last time, is because I think there's multiple teleporters that will take you to Caelid that exist in various spots in Limgrave and down here the Weeping Peninsula, which I also consider part of Limgrave.
Are there multiple?
I
teleports to
think
Caelid?
there's two different ones. There's one both in the Dragonburnt ruins right in the beginning, and then there's one somewhere down on the oh my gosh, Weeping Peninsula. I'm almost positive,
mean-
and they take you to different spots somewhere in Caelid, and you can just be like, "Oh no, where am I?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you got to give a ton of credit to Limgrave. Like, I feel like the sole reason that I played this game the second time all the way through is because of Limgrave. Because
That's what I mean, man. Like literally,
Yeah.
that's why I'm giving it so much credit, because I genuinely, like, without asking you that, I just assumed that was the case. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I booted this game up a few months ago because I knew we were going to talk about it and I was expecting to hate it. And then once you open that door and look at Limgrave and you just start running around, you find so many things to do. Like, it's hard not to just want to run around and find stuff on your little Call of Duty horseman.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean, and also like just even like this framing like at nighttime, because the cool part about the Lands Between is that even at night, the Erd Tree is still lighting up the area ambiently, like just enough where it's not actually like it's dark, but it's not that dark, you know? It's just a cool thing, and I think Limgrave frames just the way that the world looks from a distance really well. And also, when you get to, we're like, oh, here's, let's actually just get right to the gate front.
To Stormyvale.
Yeah, just to, so it would be pointing me that a ways normally. And then that man's gonna fall from up there, and if you weren't paying attention, he would just jump and spook you. Here he
he'll get you.
comes. There he is. Goodbye.
All right, so let me ask my follow-up then. What's your favorite Legacy dungeon?
Oh man, that one's really tough. Cause I really, really, really like the dungeon designs in all of these games. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look how cool this is. It's amazing. There's a castle. There's a big tree. There's a bunch of wolves. No one knows where they came from. Oh, what's here?
I'm surprised you don't immediately have a I thought for sure you'd be like, oh, my favorite Legacy dungeon is Stormvale or whatever. You don't have one
Here's the thing.
specific in
Stormvale's
mind.
actually a really, really great dungeon because a substantial amount of it within itself is so optional. Like, you don't have to do most of
Yeah.
Stormvale to be able to get through Stormvale.
Yeah, when I went back to Stormvale later just on a whim and found found the tree guy that everyone hates, the ulcerated tree spirit at the bottom of Stormvale, I was like, yo, this game rules. Are you kidding me?
I have a question. The very first time you did it, because actually now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I did it in this playthrough. I should go talk to Gostock, because I think he might have moved now that I've been in Altus.
Because he's a prick.
When you went or when you went to Stormvale, did you go and get into, like, I guess if you felt the ulcerated tree spirit, but that was your second playthrough. Did you go to the underground area, I guess, for lack of a better term, your first time there?
It wasn't my second playthrough. It was my first playthrough, but I just came back.
Okay. Well, I guess when was the first time you went down there? Was it that occurrence?
It was it was like when I came back to Stormvale like 20 hours later or something.
So you didn't see the big face the first time you went there.
Maybe, I guess not. I don't know.
Wait, do you not know what I'm talking about at all?
I'm not. I think is it at the bottom by the ulcerated tree spirit? Are you gonna show me right now?
I don't remember if it's by the ulcerated tree spirit. Oh boy, I don't remember how to.
No, I remember how to get there. There's a grace that not the cliffside.
Rampart Tower.
Liftside chamber? I think it's Liftside Chamber. Yes,
sounds right.
Oh, I remember how to get there, baby. There's a door that leads you kind of straight out there if you've gone right behind you. Nope.
Oh yeah, here's the thing. I never came from there on this playthrough.
Oh, so you never did.
I just didn't do that part because I wanted to just kick Godric in the face with my kicking boots.
Is it to the right? Is it down there? No.
I'd have to keep progressing, I think. But anyway, the first time that you would figure out anything about Godwyn is because they buried Godwyn underneath Stormvale, and so with his here's the first lore thing we're going to talk about, I guess. So because Godwyn only died in soul and his body is still there, and that's why Deathblight is a thing, because it's all an extension of his just body that isn't really dead, but he's not really alive. They buried him under Stormvale, and so one of the biggest extensions of like his body is just this giant nightmare fish face thing that is growing out of the ground that is just part of one of the little sewer underground areas. And that face appears in multiple places in the lands between. There's more places in the DLC, and then you go and you find Godwyn for Fia's quest, which you just did like last week, I think, if I remember right. I think we were talking on the phone when you were doing it. Big murder fish man. I can go there because I actually did that.
Yeah, I saw his face. He's right behind the ulcerated tree spirit. I remember.
Okay, so that is where that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but you went through Stormvale and beat it the first time on your first playthrough and didn't experience that. And to me, what I heard.
No, I did. I did find it the first playthrough.
But not your first visits at Stormvale.
Yeah,
right?
It was my second visit.
Yeah, so I remember a lot of discourse when the game came out of people getting to Stormvale and everyone immediately being like, "Dude, what is in the basement? What is that? What in the world is that?" Because we didn't have any explanation of what happened to Godwyn. Is that Godwyn? Why would anything be there? Like that, I hadn't found that item description yet, or gotten to that plot point where Ronnie talks about the Knight of Black Knives and stuff. Yeah. So there was that like, what is this? Why? And that I think is also another thing that like I feel like you enjoy that type of thing, but also you didn't play the game at a time when that was going to like be a thing, Yeah. And I'm curious how you'd feel about playing one of these like at launch when everybody's just like, I don't know anything about this,
Oh, I think it's cool. Like I said, I have a good appreciation for the fact that like there's a lot that's just up for people to discover. I don't even need an explanation. Like just the fact that I saw a face and there was an ulcerated tree spirit there for me to find was just cool, because it was like, oh, there's this crazy visual thing at the bottom of this castle that feels important that I just stumbled upon. Like that's my favorite thing about this whole game.
Yeah, and I guess
Yeah.
I don't even want to say difference, because I am personally so much more invested in the lore and the way that it is presented and how you discover those things, whereas you're this is actually a really funny total inversion. I have no problem looking things up to just get to more content in the game, but you're like, I will only watch the Vadi video.
Yeah, well, because
you
I don't know.
you
And this,
you're like, I won't read item descriptions. I'm going to skip every cutscene. I don't care nothing about nothing, but
I didn't skip the cutscenes this time, or the first time. The first time I watched the cutscenes.
yeah, but you skipped the cutscenes that you didn't even get to the first time this time because you're a turd man.
It's because I was on the phone with you. It wasn't because if I was alone, I probably would have watched them, or I would have watched some of them. But like,
Should go watch them bad boys on YouTube. You skipped some of the best cutscenes in the game, dog. You should have gotten
Yeah,
off the
whatever.
phone with me.
I don't care. It's just like I don't care about. I don't know. My problem is I just don't know anything. Like I might know some things about these characters, but like
It's
it's not like a.
It's
story
less
game
about
to me.
knowing anything about the character and just it being a really cool, really well directed cutscene. You know, that's all.
But I don't care. I don't care. Like if it was Ganon, it would be cool because I'm like, well, I know who Link and Ganon are. But when it's like Radon, I'm like, I don't know who that guy is. He just got horns.
Yeah,
and
here's
stuff.
the thing. You know who's way cooler than Ganon? Horaloo
Radon.
Warrior. Nah, he'd win. Horaloo would take command grab him into the air, and then break him over his shoulder, just like he does.
It's
to
just
you.
like I don't know. I'm there for like a story and a cutscene, but like I don't know. First of all, I don't have that much patience for story and cutscenes unless I'm really invested in what the story is. But in a lot of games, I'm like, I'm not there to read item descriptions. I'm here to punch guys. That's why I play games. If I wanted to read, I would read a book. So like I get it. I just don't. That's just not my thing. Like I'm not gonna go through item descriptions and formulate all these theories and stuff. Like, but I'm not gonna do that in any game.
Well-
I just want to play the game.
Well,
and
it's
chill.
true. Item descriptions aside, though, I guess I don't really see the difference in. And this is another thing where I think actually we're quite different. You're just like, I don't want to read. I'm like, yeah, but you're telling me Dragon Quest 11 is fully voice acted all the time. You don't have to do a lot of reading for dialogue.
Most of it is voice acted.
Okay.
Actually, all of the cutscenes are. But regardless, it doesn't matter because like
I'm just saying, like,
reading-
I think it's like, I don't know. There's lots of text in video games. That's just how it is, you know. Like,
yeah, it's not the text, but it's like if you're reading a story, you're like, all right, cool. This character said this to this character, and you're like following a thread of a story where like, if right now you're fighting dudes, to get a grasp of what you're doing, you would have to actively pause and go to your inventory and find an item and read through. Like I'm not doing that. I want to play the game. Yeah, like right. Like you
Yeah,
have to
this-
like kind of actively choose like instead of punching guys to read this stuff instead.
yeah, but you don't think that one end featuring a sickle for slicing attacks while the other boasts a winding spike for boring into flesh isn't a cool sentence? You know?
I got bored while you were saying that.
Oh.
Oh, that's cool. If I was gonna do, I was toying with my weapons earlier this week, and today I turned the game on for a bit. If I was gonna do a new game plus or another run, I would definitely want to mess with some more katanas because I did have some cool katanas, but they're not really as like punishing as what's the cool open up your weapons. I bet you got some cool
I
weapons.
mean, here's the thing. I have basically all of them. You mean Moonveil?
Yeah, some of the Moonveil katana is cool. There's another like meteorite katana that's really cool.
That one's not nearly as good, unfortunately.
What's the one that has like the ice electric ability? That was pretty neat.
Oh, this is terrible.
The dragon skill one. This
Yeah.
is terrible. Why? It
Yeah,
looks cool.
It's just fine.
That buff is good, isn't it? It looks good.
It's fine. It's not that great.
The other one, what was the one I really liked? There was one that was like a spinny blade. Go up. It's at the top right of your screen right now. Yeah, this one rules, dude. You ever mess with this one?
Oh yeah, this guy, because it's got the unique R1 move, because that's not how the other Cryptic greatswords swing. I have
Yeah.
considered messing around with this just for that moveset alone because it is cool. But I just generally speaking never really use curved greatswords other than good old Bloodhound Fang. because
Yeah.
Bloodhound Fang
Well,
rules.
the one you just had open rules because it's got the unique attacks. It also does frost buildup, and it also like has pretty good like poise damage. Like it was like breaking enemies' animations and stuff too. Like I like the other great swords to do. So I was like, yo, that weapon rules. I might mess with that one if I were gonna play more.
That's just a great sword and curved great sword thing. So when it comes to stance damage and stuff, so here I'll explain this much about the combat. So you swing a weapon multiple times, right? If I hit it once, he does one swing. He does it twice, he does two specific swings. So every one of those swings has something they call a motion value, which is why different swings do different amounts of damage, because it's basically just a multiplier that's something off of one, and so motion values of heavy attacks are higher, motion values of charged heavy attacks are even higher, and light attacks are lower, and that's how that works. It does not change anything with the stance damage. Stance damage for combos are just the weapon class does this much with this type of attack. That's it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I am 100% positive. Like this
When you
has
say
a specific amount of stance damage. This
When
has
you
a
say
specific
stance
amount.
damage, you mean like you're stopping the enemy's animation from playing out, right?
Stance damage as in how many times I have to smack that guy before he goes bang and drops to one knee and I can riposte him.
No, that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the enemy's about to swing at you and you hit him once and you either interrupt his attack or he keeps going through it.
I think it's not the same literal value that what you're talking about, I don't think. That is poise. That is specifically
that's what
poise, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So
Poise,
that has like a high enough poise that I was still able to like break enemies.
yeah, I was going to say it's a different thing, but it's the same concept. But yes, curved greatswords just had enough for you to do that to certain enemies. And yeah, pretty much any kind of greatsword for a smaller enemy is eventually going to break through him. Like
your poise didn't break his poise like I thought it would.
Yeah, probably because I'm on New Game plus 4 and this is plus 0. Or New Game plus 3 and this is plus 0. It's probably not helping.
But yeah, I was
mostly
messing with
tickling
that one earlier today, and I was like, that weapon rules because it's got the freeze and the poise damage. It's nice.
I love the Bloodhound's finesse move so much; it's really good.
Yeah, this is a cool weapon. I messed with this weapon my first playthrough.
This
I
is
used
a
it for
weapon a
while.
lot of people carried right to the end. They got it. They were like, "Yo, this is great," and then just never unequipped it.
Yeah, it's a good weapon. I don't remember why I dropped it my first playthrough. I think maybe it was a little. I wasn't as good with it because it was a little slower than my katana.
Oh, you never really use big boy weapons, do you?
I used the Godskin one that you recommended, the crazy sword, for a minute.
Oh, the Godslayer greatsword. Yeah, colossal.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Get
I messed with these for a minute.
The big hammer.
I always wanted to use the colossal weapons. I thought they were mad cool.
Yeah, dude, look at this. Bam.
That's awesome. Rules. Yo, all right. So I don't know how much more we really want to talk. I feel like we may have to wrap it up here soon.
Yeah, we
we're,
probably
like, after
should.
the
Yeah,
2-hour mark.
is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about? We as has been said multiple times, we could theoretically talk about this game forever because there is really truly no ends to the amount of content and stuff in here. The mechanics are deep. The story is super cool. I don't know. Is there anything you want to say, even if there's no other topics you want to talk about?
Did we talk about how much I hate the bosses?
We did, and how you're a little baby.
To be fair, I don't hate the bosses, and I don't hate all of the bosses. I feel like again that's me mischaracterizing myself a little bit. But that was my biggest pain point. I don't know, man. It's definitely just like. It's like one of the games of all time. You know what I mean? Like,
normally people say that about bad games.
Yeah, I know. I meant it in a good way though. Like
there's probably never going to be anything quite like Elden Ring again, in the same way that there's probably never going to be anything quite like Baldur's Gate 3 again. I think
right.
the scope of what those games are and what they accomplish are triumphs in and of themselves, and it is amazing that they exist and are good at what they do. Both of them are imperfect games, and that's fine because all the things that they do are amazing. And here, I guess I have a follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
What would you want out of not just From Software's next game, but if they were to make another Soulsborne type game, something in this vein, what would you want out of it other than easier bosses?
I feel like you should go first because I feel like you probably have a good answer or a better thought out answer than I would.
I have an easy answer, and the answer is trick weapons from Bloodborne. that's it. I just want more of those. I just want trick weapons again, and it's a thing they already did, and I can't believe they didn't bring them back. But that's it. Because honestly, I don't know, man. I really don't know what I would add. There's just so much.
I want something that, like, not necessarily that I would want it to be easier, but I would want something that has more of the cozy elements and more of the puzzle solving elements, because again, like, I feel like so many moments I really loved about this game were like, because I had internalized the logic of the world, I was like, oh, cool, I know how to solve this puzzle, or I can intuit that this character might be over here based on XYZ. Like, I feel like they could lean a little bit more into, like, a world that has cool NPCs or more interesting puzzles or different ways to interact with the world that aren't just combat, that are just neat, you know? Like, because like, getting immersed in the world and understanding, like, the ins and outs of, like, these little caves and tunnels and stuff, and just uncovering it is so fun. I feel like I want more of that stuff, like those puzzly towers with weird things to find and glowy turtles and jar people.
You want Tears of the Elden Ring. You know,
not even. I mean,
I only mean that in the it almost seems like you would want take the combat out of both of those games, you know? They both do really interesting things with their world and their map layout and stuff. And Zelda leans on the puzzle side more than it does on the combat side. So a puzzle ring.
But it doesn't have to be puzzles, but something that leans into, like, Bach. Like, Bach is such a great character. He's, like, hilarious and wholesome and lovable. And, like, you find him in all these different places in the maps, and, like, they're so good at doing that specific thing. Like, they have it in their games, and they're good. I wish they would lean into it more. Like the glowy turtles. It's so cool when you find a glowy turtle, because you're just like, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the craziest, like, I figured it out moment in Elden Ring was.
I got another one.
Yeah, what is that?
It's in Caelid, and it's right across the bridge. It's, like, right over where the beast guy is.
Yeah.
That tower, go teleport to it. Yeah. I remember this one from my first playthrough too. This was another.
Is this the little stone gargoyle one? Oh, I didn't even do
go
this
find,
one.
Go find the stone gargoyle. So when I found this one, I had found enough of them that I was like, okay, I know that stone gargoyle is going to give me a clue to a puzzle, but the stone gargoyle is broken, which means the puzzle isn't going to work anymore. So you have to find a different way into the tower, and then he remembers.
Yeah.
And
okay,
so
never mind. I must have done that. I forgot you don't break the seal on this guy. Oh,
yeah,
I missed.
And so I was like, oh.
But yeah.
So I wonder if I jump over here, I can get in. That was, like, another one of those aha moments that, like, it's not even really a puzzle as much as it is, like, you know what those stone gargoyles are, and so because you've internalized the logic of the world, you're like, oh, cool, I figured out this thing. That was, like, another great moment.
You use your noggin, you know, and that's... Oh! Did you just see the game cheat me out of the Spirit Spring?
Yes, and it's done that to me. The falling in this game has cheated me so many times. So
I've never had that happen with the Spirit Spring thing. Yeah, you know what's interesting with the... Let's talk about the fall damage a little bit. So I think you can fall up to, like, it's 20 meters or something, like, of whatever your in-game height is until you can die. And there is a point where you can fall and take just a little bit of damage and not die. But that's at, like, 17 meters.
Yeah.
So you look at a jump and you're like, well, I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
most of the
And
time
if
you're
you're
like, it's probably gonna kill me, I think. But also, man, you can fall multiple times more than you could in any of the other Souls games. You can fall very, very, very short in the other Souls games, and you're just dead.
Yeah. And if you're, God help you if you're trying to traverse down roots or rocks or something where the fall damage calculation gets mad jank and you get gypped out of it like you just did.
Yeah, because you start sliding. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah.
it's like,
That's
yeah, it's
that's where all the jank comes from. Yeah, I did find one. Here, this is where we'll end it on. I'm gonna put down the
Oh, I
putrid
love
avatar for you, and he's gonna bash me in the face with his big hammer first, though.
the other putrid avatar is like the toughest one. He's like the only one that gave me trouble in this run through.
I don't even remember where I was running, which one this is, to be honest with you. I should be
I
using
love- I
fire
love-
because that would be better, but yeah.
I love these guys. These guys feel fair and they're tough, but they're not too tough. This is a great fight. The last, I think I might have said this on the last recording, I'm not sure, but the last Erdtree Avatar fight I did was up on the snowy giant mountaintops area, and he summons a mimic of the Erdtree Avatar, so you have to fight two, and I perfected that fight. I took no damage on my second try. I didn't even like mean to. I just like
Wow.
whipped him because I know these. It's just a good fight. It's fair, and I can dodge all the attacks. Like, I love that. That was awesome.
I don't like this attack.
Yeah, this one is definitely like you're gonna get
I'm dead.
hit.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I knew from the roll when I mistimed it. I was like, nope, it's over.
It's over. Yep.
Well, anyway, it's
Get good, Tommy.
it's,
Jesus.
It's the Steak America.
So
Shout out to the Beard Bros.
we're never gonna talk about this game ever again. It's illegal starting now.
That's. I don't think that's true. It might
I
be.
do. I know it. I know
Which
it to
part?
be
The
true.
legal part or the talking about it part?
So thanks for watching us today on Cryptic Puzzle.
I can't believe you do this to me.
Or I can't believe you've done
I can't
this.
believe you've done this.
I can't believe you've done this. This has been great. I'm sure we'll come back and talk about this game at some point in the future.
Almost certainly.
But,
But yeah, maybe, you know what? Here's the thing. Maybe one day you'll just be like, maybe I will play Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah, maybe.
I recommend it. I think it's great. But, we'll see.
Yeah. I think for now, that might be a good thing to do in like 6 months or a year when I would like to play this game again, but not start from scratch. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, man. We'll legitimately, at that point is when I know I've poked and prodded at you on the combat stuff, but as we've talked about a little bit with the DLC, it's definitely a lot tougher numerically. So I'm not going to tell you have to play the game in a specific way. Just that if you're like, yeah, I want to keep my bleed build going, let's talk about how to like really make sure your bleed build's going to get those enemies bleeding, Because
Bleed build
I
is
think
easy
you'll
mode.
really enjoy the exploration of the DLC like a ton. It to me is the first time that they have managed to re-achieve the vertically stacked stuff really well that they did in Dark Souls 1, but they did it with an open world, and it's unbelievable. It's really incredible. So, yeah.
Bleed build is easy mode for life.
Except the DLC, everything's hard in the DLC, Andy.
I know. I don't care much for that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
This has been Cryptic Puzzle, everybody. Thank you for being here. I have not looked at if there's been anyone in the chat at all whatsoever because I've just been attempting to keep my computer running and streaming a game and streaming to Andy and doing too many other things all at once. So, if you were
Yo, real
here,
talk. Have you been streaming this on Twitch? Oh, it is live. Okay. Thank
I
God.
sure hope we've been streaming this on Twitch.
You have.
Otherwise, you and I have just been talking to each other for 2 hours as though we were talking to the public, which would be pretty funny.
Bro, if we were just talking like friends and it wasn't getting monetized, like what am I even doing with my life?
Oh my god, yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah, this thing that we're also still not monetizing.
All right, well, goodbye, everyone out there. Who God help you if you listen to this whole thing.
Yeah,
But
if you're
thank you. We love
here,
you.
you know what? You have a wonderful rest of your evening, day, year, all of it. Because I don't know how you found us, but yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. All right,
Okay, bye bye.
bye.